And moving on, cyber criminals hitting several U.S. government agencies, along with hospitals, universities, and private organizations around the globe.
Yeah, U.S. officials suspect the hackers belong to Clop ransomware, a group operating from inside Russia who exploited a vulnerability in widely used software.
Yeah, for more on this, let's bring in Roger Gewolb, founder and CEO of Fair Money. Roger, great to have you with us this afternoon. Cyber attacks certainly sound scary, and I can only imagine that this is something we're going to be seeing more of globally. Do you think that Americans have something to be worried about?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think that Putin, as many are saying now, is pretty much China's proxy. When sanctions were heaped upon sanctions, he was pretty stuck. He was, in the deep stuff, and he ran to China, and they basically bailed him out. And as many experts now say, they could literally bankrupt him at any moment. So he needs to stay in line. And of course, he is really a proxy for all of their cyber attacks. I think there's a good side to this, which is that China, of course, has been buying everything all around the world, in Asia, in Europe, in Britain, in Latin America, in the States. And, if they haven't bought it, they're infiltrating it one way or another. And they are not going to want to see that global infrastructure disrupted by any kind of a war or nuclear threat. So Putin is going to have to toe the line. That's at least the good news in all that. But yeah, he's probably, to a very large degree, a proxy for their own cyber attacks. And it's going to continue and it's going to grow.
What's your take right now on Ukraine and Russia, and Ukraine on some counteroffensive efforts?
It's a very complex situation, Bob, and there's so much conflicting data and research and facts and opinions and experts. It's very hard to form a really clear picture, but I do think that there are three predisposing factors that should be really paid close attention to. The first two are rather disturbing. The third one is rather comforting. So the first one is culture. We all live in a culture. Every country's got its own culture. The cultures are actually wildly different. It's kind of like a fish lives in water and humans live in air, and to try to understand each other's substance around, we don't pay much attention to it, but they're wildly different. Now, in Britain, for example, the objective is to sit down tolerantly, fairly, and work out something that works for everybody. In Russia and Ukraine, their culture is that if your back is against the wall, their history is if your enemy has damaged you, you fight to the death. You never give up. The Russian and the Ukrainian people want strong leaders, and they don't want them sitting down and negotiating with their enemies. So that's a situation in which it's really hard, even for Henry Kissinger's 100th birthday, to come up with any kind of a peace settlement. So I think that's a factor that makes it very difficult. The second factor is that, stay close to Newsmax, because you will find out what's going on in the world for sure. I was privileged to attend a private dinner here in London a few weeks ago, hosted by the amazing Christopher Ruddy, the head of Newsmax. And I sat next to a lady, a media person, who had been at a meeting with Vladimir Putin in a room not long before. She said he was the fittest, buffest person in the room. He could have taken half the guys in the room with a hand tied behind his back. All these stories about his ill health are simply not true, she said. So I don't know, but I mean, nobody should wish ill health on anybody.
We're running out of time, literally running out of time. Can you give us a third point, sir?
Third factor is China. And as I said earlier, China's calling the shots. So the comforting news is that Putin isn't going to do anything without China telling him to. Okay. And China certainly doesn't want him wrecking the infrastructure they've built.
Right, because they have a relationship with Ukraine on many levels. So, Roger Gewolb, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, stay with